Hello and welcome to this episode of the Hello Dreamers podcast. I'm going to dive straight in today and just get on with the topic because it's a really interesting one and it's one that comes up an awful lot with my clients, and it is pricing of your products or services. And I know a lot of us find this really, really difficult to get the right balance between affordability and portraying our brand as top quality. So let's start. Let's dive in. So basically, my own experience with pricing, when I first started selling my astronaut soft toys, gosh, it was more than 10 years ago now, excuse me, I thought that the cheaper my product, which also means a much smaller profit margin, would appeal to the masses, and therefore I'd get thousands upon thousands of sales. So yeah, that was kind of my mindset back then. And let me tell you this, it was wrong. It was really wrong. But that's what happened with me and my business. I started off really cheap, really cheap. And I did a lot of experimenting. Yes, I got sales. They didn't come flooding in like at the start of any business. They never do they? But I started experimenting. I did a lot of experimenting with my pricing. And by the way, this is all on Amazon and my website. So yeah, after a lot of experimenting, I decided to put the prices really low and I decided to trial it with the prices really high. It's quite tricky to do experimenting like this because of sort of seasonal fluctuations in the way that your products sell. For example, mine are soft toys. They naturally sell much better in the fourth quarter. So my experimentation has gone on over a few years. And what I've learned from that is basically the higher my price point makes no difference to the sales. In fact, no, I'll take that back. It does make a difference. Sales are better when my prices are higher. And not only are my sales better, but my reviews are better. The feedback that I get is better. And obviously I get more profit, which is kind of what we want, isn't it? So that was a really interesting one for me. It's a massive learning curve, and it really got me into thinking about I guess it's kind of like buyer psychology. I always put myself in my buyers or my customers' shoes, and I think, how do I shop online? And this is what I do. I don't know if you're the same, but this is what I do. I quite often, let's take Amazon as a shopping platform. I go on Amazon, I search for the item that I want, and say, for example, it's some frying pans. Let's say frying pans. And on Amazon, there might be a list of 20 frying pans. And the first few, they're kind of unbranded, not well-known brand at all. And they're cheap. They're cheap. You can tell that they've sold thousands upon thousands of them, but still they're cheap. I completely dismiss those items. There's probably absolutely nothing wrong with the quality of them, but just my psychology tells me, no, that's not what I want. I want something a bit better quality. So then I'll look down at the next price point, check the reviews, and I usually end up purchasing, first of all, the item that is branded really lovely. It doesn't have to be Tefal or a really predominant household branding name. It doesn't have to be that, but the branding, the pictures, the whole thing. If it's a very small company, it's a bonus, but it doesn't matter to me that it's a small company. It's about the branding. And if the price is on the high side, then I'm prepared to pay that because in my mind, I'm getting a lot more value for my money. It all boils down to buyer psychology. Have a look into that. It's really, really interesting. And the moral of this story is don't underprice your items at all. Whether it's a service or a product that you offer, don't underprice. And after all my experimentation back at the beginning of my business, eventually I didn't want my brand to be associated with a low quality, unbranded, cheap tap kind of toy. I wanted it to be a market leader where people are confident in it, they recommend it to friends. And that's another thing. If you can build your brand and have really good quality products, people will tell other people about it as well. So I made a decision early on that I wanted my brand to be associated with the higher end of the market. So yeah, that's what I do. So I set my pricing quite high for soft toys. They are very well made. even though I do say so myself, but they are. And I want the price to reflect that. And also I want the profit margin in my business as well. So when you do pricing, the main thing you've got to do is obviously factor in all your costs that cost you to get that product to market. And then sort of do a bit of reverse engineering, see what margins you need to actually make a sustainable profit. So that's the first thing to think about, is factor in all your costs, add up all your costs, and come up with the price point, and then add whatever profit you want onto it. But don't be afraid to experiment with this, and don't be afraid to aim high. That's the kind of image. We're all about brands here. We like brands. Yes, they're very, very small, unknown brands, but brands nonetheless. It's nothing worse than going on a platform like Amazon or Etsy or wherever you're looking, and you see a really lovely product. Pictures aren't that great, and the brand name is just weird. Not that it's not an English name, but just a really badly thought out name. Yeah, without it actually having any kind of relevance to any kind of branding whatsoever. So, and also referring back to Amazon, because it's obviously my area of expertise, people will pay a little bit more because if you can offer them prime delivery, that's another thing. My products are higher priced because I do the FBA model where Amazon ship everything for me, and I pay Amazon to do that. So obviously my retail price needs to reflect that. Because I don't want the prime delivery deal coming out of my own profit, so I up the prices there. And like I say, people do expect to pay a little bit more for prime delivery. As I've talked about before, always put yourself in your buyer's shoes. How do you purchase? That's one of the things I do. I go onto Amazon, and if it's quick, speedy, free prime delivery, I'm in, and I'll pay more for that. And I think most of us, depending on the product, obviously, but most of us do shop that way, whether we like it or not. That is how we shop nowadays. So yeah, obviously, when you're talking about pricing your product, you do want to remember that you do have to have, obviously, an element of really good quality in what you're offering. You can't have a really poor quality product and expect people to pay high prices. That will just, your business will not sustain itself at all if you do that. So you've got to be really confident, as we all are, because we've all got beautiful, lovely quality products here. But yeah, just make sure that your price reflects what you're selling. For example, I could nip to IKEA and buy a pillar candle for what, £6, something like that. We're in England, so I'll do it in pounds. So yeah, say £6. It's going to be bog standard. It's not going to be, well, it'll be IKEA branded, but not beautiful. It's not going to be gift wrapped. And then if I look on Amazon for, let's say, a scented candle, a scented pillar candle, and I'll go on and look for that, and all the listings will come up, and then I'll go through. And the ones that I would buy are the ones that are branded beautifully. It's really quite straightforward, and usually those ones are higher priced. Like, think about the White Company. I often buy from there, although I do try and buy from smaller brands now because they're probably even better quality, to be honest. But as small brands, the clients that I work with do really, really struggle with having the confidence to think, okay, I can charge £28 for this pillar candle. Yes, you can, because there are buyers out there that want a £28 pillar candle. Yes, they can go to IKEA and buy a £6 one, but they're not getting the whole buyer experience. They're not getting the branding, and the quality possibly won't be there in IKEA. I don't really know about candle ingredients of IKEA, but you get my point. So yeah, and that obviously the price needs to reflect the quality. So I think most of my clients, in fact, no, I'll rephrase that. All of my clients have really, really high-end quality, beautiful products. They're not necessarily that expensive to make, but the end result and the branding is all really, really top-notch stuff. And as with all this psychology, you will also create a fan base for your brand as well. If people are happy with their experience and think, oh yeah, I've spent £28 on this candle, isn't it beautiful? It makes the house smell nice. They will become fans of what you're offering and be repeat customers. from you. One example I like to tell people about for when you're thinking about pricing and you're not sure whether you should be the £6 candle from IKEA or whether you should be a £28 candle beautifully branded, I always come back to the example of, I don't know if you know Chili's, it's a water bottle company. They're predominantly on Amazon. I think they have a website, but they're predominantly on Amazon. And when you look at their products, they've got the little chili logo on, they're nice colours, but they are very, very similar to other really cheap products on Amazon. Now, why is it that I always buy chili? Well, I don't know why it is. I do know why, because I assume that chili's high pricing, and they are expensive, by the way, I assume that I'm getting better quality. Yes, the packaging's nicer, the whole experience is nicer, the logo is nicer. When I get that bottle home, or actually I've got coffee cups as well, it makes me feel something that I've spent a decent amount of money on a product. So when I'm drinking out of that bottle, I feel something. It's quite hard to explain, isn't it? It's like if I knew that that bottle cost me £2 and it was cheap tap from Amazon, I wouldn't feel as I do when I got home and used that bottle. So chilies are really high priced. The product is probably really, the actual product itself is probably really, really similar to other things on the market, but they're very, very clever about it, and they've branded and priced it. So they are the high-end market leaders of that niche. So they've done a really, really good job there. And going back to what I've just said about cheap tat, let's call it, I don't know a better word for it, on Amazon, gone are the days, or going are the days of Amazon being known as where you just pick up a load of rubbish. They are really, really working hard to change that image and be the platform people go for all the best brands. Because I've been on the platform for more than 10 years, it's really, really noticeable. I think in the last 3 or 4 years, everything is changing massively on there, and it's really becoming noticeable. You're seeing all the big brands like Nike are on there. And what you've got to remember, these big brands, what other example have I got? Nike and say, I don't know, Pritt Stick glue and sellotape, they're all brands. But what you've got to remember is they are third-party sellers like we are. They're just bigger than us. So you're not buying from Amazon. If you want to buy from Amazon, you buy Amazon Basics, and it's branded Amazon Basics. They are the products Amazon have created and they own and sell. And they are usually cheaper. Some of them are great, but anyway, I digress. So what you've got to remember is all those big brands that are now appearing on Amazon and doing really well on Amazon are third-party sellers. They've just started listing their products on Amazon like you and I are doing. So that indicates to me, again, that Amazon are really, really moving away from the cheap, generic rubbish that it kind of was known for 10 years ago. And they're really moving towards a platform for everything, but everything branded and quality. There is a section on Amazon actually called Brand Registry. And if you join Brand Registry, you get all sorts of different perks. You can upgrade your listings. There's loads to do on there, which is another indication they are favouring brands, small brands. My brand is really small. So it's not just the big giants like Nike and Pritt Stick or Vax or whatever, Dyson. It's not just the big ones. They are favouring the small brands as well. But what they're looking for is quality, pricing, imagery, videography, if you can do it, or the whole thing. That's what they're aiming for, and which is great. That fits in perfectly with what we're achieving as well, doesn't it? So it's kind of becoming a win-win platform. And that's why I teach people it, basically. That's what I recommend. So yeah, there's a lot of psychology with pricing, but my takeaway from this podcast episode would be really, really do not be afraid to position your product at the high end of the quality market. Don't make the mistake that I did when I first started and think, yeah, low pricing, loads of people buy, And that's where my position in the market, the soft toy market, will be: low quality, poor quality. I can't actually remember the pivotal moment where I decided, hang on a minute, it's my brand. I get to choose whether I want it to be a low quality load of rubbish. I think actually what it probably was when I started telling non-business friends and family what I was doing, because that's a whole nother episode, but I kept it quiet, like I know a lot of us do. I kept my whole business venture quiet from most people. And I think the whole thing, it's all a psychology thing, isn't it? So I kept it quiet. I kept it on the lowdown. I kept the quality on the lowdown, kept the pricing on the lowdown, all that kind of thing. And then I think my husband probably really encouraged me to start telling friends what I was doing, because it's a bit silly not to, really. And I thought, oh God, I'm a bit embarrassed that I sell this low quality toy. And that probably was the pivotal moment for me. I was like, no, hang on, I want to be proud of this. I want to say, look, this is what I create. I make this. Look at it. It's amazing. It's really good quality. And yes, it's on the pricey side, but look at it. It's amazing. And that's what I want you to think about as well. Do not be ashamed of your product. Price it. So firstly, that you make a really good profit from it. And secondly, that you're proud of being a high-end brand in whatever niche you're in. I'm in the soft toy niche, and there's a wide range of quality you can get. Like, you know, those grabber machines. I don't know if you've seen them in arcades, and it's like a claw grabber, and you can pay money and you move the claw, and you very rarely grab anything, but when you do, you get it out, and it's usually a pretty poor quality. I know soft toys, and I can tell how they've been made, and stitching, fabric, all that kind of thing, and they're poor quality. Then you get something, a brand like mine, which is mid to high level. And then you get the really high brand like Steiff, the Steiff teddies that could go for hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of pounds. They're all basically the same kind of thing. They're all plush toys made from fabric. They've got stuffing in, they've been sewn together. But it's about the positioning and it's about the branding. So yeah, that's what I want to get through to you is, by all means, experiment with branding. I don't run sales, by the way, and this is another thing. I don't put, unless I'm discontinuing something, but if I've got a cash cow product, like a hero product that's doing really well, I never put it on sale, because it adds to that buyer psychology that don't bother waiting for it to be reduced, because it's not going to be, because it sells too well. So bear that in mind as well. Again, it's another way of positioning your brand as being a market leader. So yeah, do not be afraid of pricing high. Right. I hope you've enjoyed that one. I get asked about pricing a lot. So as usual, if you have any questions, email me or DM me on Instagram. I hope you found it useful, and have a lovely, lovely day.